the most important thing in the way that you live your life and what you should look for in other people is authenticity. Be authentic about what you're trying to do, who you are. It's so essential.
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Jayne Morgan. Previously, episode 1250 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 2 years, 3 months, 5 hours, 30 minutes since we last had that conversation. It's such a great pleasure to connect with you. We spoke so much about podcasting, as well as you as an individual on the personal side of how you became who you became and what you're doing. I am so glad for the opportunity to get an update as to what's going on in your world today.
I'm delighted to be giving you that update. It's wonderful to speak to you again.
Yeah. So what's up, Jayne? The last time we spoke, podcast was it was the thing, right? Are you still podcasting?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, even more so. So as far as South Africa is concerned, the increase in interest in podcasting, in the use of podcasting by brands has been exponential. It's something that, we're a long way away from being the States or the UK or even Australia, but the podcasting world in South Africa is exploding. And I am now, having been somebody that was constantly trying to get people to understand what podcasting was about and try and suggest ways to them that they could use it, whether it was an individual or whether it was a brand or whether it was an institution, whatever it was. Now I find much more that people are beating a path to my door. Everybody has heard of it. Everyone thinks they need one. So it's a really exciting time to be in podcasting in South Africa. And for that reason, I'm leaving the country for reasons completely divorced from the fact that the sector that I've worked so hard to try and develop is really beginning to blossom. I'm now actually going back, and you can probably hear from my accent that I am originally from the UK. And in fact, my husband got a flashy job in the UK, so I suppose I had better go too. So in fact, in answer to your question specifically about me, I am going over to London. In fact, I leave tomorrow. Well, I leave tomorrow to start the journey, and then I'm coming back to do something else, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And it is a very exciting time to be in audio in the world. So we're definitely experiencing a podcasting explosion in South Africa. We are still struggling with a number of things. There's still an amount of listener education that needs to happen. We still suffer from extremely high data costs, which does have an impact. So actually going over to the UK there, I mean, I've been looking at what's going on there and talking to people and with a view to what I can do when I'm there. And it's extraordinary, the level of interest that there is in the use of good quality, interesting audio ideas. I mean, if you just Google podcast production companies in the UK, the sort of company that I have been setting up and running for the last 12 years here, there are lots of them, and they're all doing lots of work. And it's an amazing time to be part of this. And for so long, audio has really been something in the shadow of video, especially with YouTube. And now podcasting has really changed all that. So I'm very sorry to be leaving South Africa at this time. I feel like, I've kind of got all the ingredients together and put the cake in the oven, and I'm not going to be here to see it come out. But I am very excited about going to London and seeing what's happening there.
How do you put together a mindset of thoughts to come up with an answer to a question such as that should I move or should I stay?
Well, in my case, I suppose I have to go because I married the man, and I said I'd stay with him, so that's what I'm going to do. So it wasn't an easy decision. I suppose also I am excited by the idea of going and testing out some of the things that I've learned in a different environment. And to be going to a more mature podcast environment where you're not, we're here still doing a lot of both listener education and customer education, client education, being able to get brands to understand what role podcasting can play in their communications mix. That's still a thing. There's less of that over in the UK. There's some. It's interesting. I had a phone call the other day from a friend of mine who works in a PR company in London. And they had a client come to them, a financial client, and saying, we really want to do a podcast. And she phoned me up and said, I don't really know what do we do? What do we do? So actually, that's one of the things that I hope that I can go over there and work in is to, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'm literally open to absolutely anything. If anyone is listening and they want to give me a job and you're in London, do get in touch. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but one of the things I'm interested in is perhaps working in sort of for a big PR agency or for a corporate and helping them use podcasting, because I am very interested. I love the art. I love making really fabulous audio. Don't get me wrong. Audio storytelling is my thing, but I'm really interested in making it work commercially. I love the idea of coming up with clever ideas that brands can use to enhance the way that they talk to their potential audiences and how the audiences interact with that, and using good quality audio, not thinly veiled advertorial, but using really great storytelling to help brands talk to people. I love that idea. That's why I started Podcast in the first place, because I could see right back in 2007 that this was an opportunity for commercial use. It wasn't just about telling stories in a different way. So it'll be interesting to go into that environment. So the answer is I sort of had to go because it would be rude of me not to, but I am excited about it.
Yeah, I believe from my overarching view, even though it's literally horizontal or however the internet works, right? But the view that I'm having is that you're, again, getting ahead of the curve in that it's what's going to be the next thing, I believe, as well, in that, yes, there are ways to do podcasts and drop ads on them and make them profitable, air quotes. Yeah. However, there are different formats that can work as well, and it'll be signatured to the individual's company and what they do and how they do that. So, yeah, I think it's really exciting that you're jumping again. And I asked the question, is it that there's something that happens because of what you do that makes this occur? Or do you think it's just coincidental?
Well, coincidence is a tricky thing because you know yourself, I'm sure, that when you open yourself up to things, then things happen. It's difficult to say. I think it's somewhere in between the two. But I think, as I say, I was very open to the idea of a move. And so that's what happened.
It's exciting as well that what you put in, you get out. When we last spoke, you talked about that a lot of what we do in life depends on grit. And you definitely put in what's necessary for something as big as this, I would say.
Well, I hope so. Actually, one of the things that has been interesting, even now, I sort of started having conversations with people in the UK about the possibilities that might be there, the sort of thing that I might be able to do. And I suppose one of the things that I suffer from, and a lot of South Africans suffer from, is this sense that if something comes from the UK or from the US particularly, it has to be better than something coming from here. And I thought, no one's going to want to employ me. I've been in South Africa for 24 years. They're not really going to be interested in this kind of developing country. What has been really interesting is that I'm actually, in a way, more interesting because I've been out of that mainstream. And people have been very open to talking to me about, what I've done. And actually, I've realized that a lot of what we do here is every bit as good as what's going on over there. And actually, sometimes it's better. And not better, I'm not sort of talking quality so much as we think we're sort of behind. But actually, South Africa and South Africans are very innovative in their thinking. They come up with ways of getting round things because they've had a lot of stuff to get round. And technologically, actually, people are quite open to change. I remember when I first got here, when you use a bank card, you use an ATM. When I came from England in 1995, I could only use my bank card in 2 banks. When I got to South Africa in 1995, I could use my South African bank card in any bank. So in fact, there are ways in which South Africa is ahead of the game sometimes with technology, but also, when I left the BBC, there were people still using manual typewriters, and not only that, they were proud of it. Whereas here, people are they're a bit more fluid, they're a bit less rigid. So actually, in some ways, I think we've all got an inferiority complex about what goes on here, and actually, I think both sides can learn from each other. So you're right, I have put a lot in, and I hope that will get me somewhere.
Well, I agree.
We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wish me luck.
Yeah, I mean, your three mottos, right? As we close, right? Like go big or
Yep.
go home. Always say yes, right? Always do the thing you're most afraid of, and this too shall pass, right? So who knows
Yep.
what this would lead to? Definitely a pass and go explore the world, right? So I
Yes.
think you're living up to what we spoke about a couple of years ago. And I think, if not anything, that is most important, that you're being true to who you are. And that, I believe, is very important.
I completely agree with you. It has become increasingly apparent to me as I've got older that the most important thing in the way that you live your life and what you should look for in other people is authenticity. That being inauthentic is the biggest enemy to almost everything. And also, actually, it's not something that one wants to be around. But authenticity actually is essential if you're going to achieve things, because you've got to, if you're driving passionately towards something, you have to be in it, 100%, and be authentic about what you're trying to do, who you are, what you think, what your principles are. That it's so essential. And also I find that inauthenticity, if I discover it in other people and in projects, in organizations, it's a real, it's something that makes me think I don't want to have anything to do with that.
Mm.
So I hope, yes, I am being authentic, and I am trying to be as authentic as possible in terms of what I want to do and what I think I can do and who I want to work with. And so yeah, it just chimes in with what you were saying about what we spoke about in the past. It's
Yeah.
all part of the same thing.
I appreciate that. Well, my friend, again, this has been such a great opportunity to connect with you. Thank you for passing by. Again, before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
I love this project. I really do. And thank you so much for following up. That's one of the things that people often don't do, is that the follow-up is really important. It's like follow-up questions in interviews. They often are the fruit of that's where you get the really good stuff, when you ask the follow-up question.
Oh, yes.
So what I want to say, I think that we are living in an extraordinary time. I mean, I know that everyone says that, but I mean, look at where we are in terms of what is happening with the most powerful countries in the world. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying, but it's intense. It's it's alive. One feels alive when looking at what is going on moment by moment. So I'm about to go into, quite an intense environment, as far as the UK is concerned. So I suppose what I would say is, embrace the intensity. It may or not all be good, but it makes you feel like, you have some significance in what you're doing, and go towards it rather than running away from it.
Love it. Again, Jayne Morgan, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.